Hi, I'm Dr. Bobby Hill. Welcome to Learning to Lead podcast. This is a new podcast that's designed to help us look at life, experiences, and subjects from a leadership lens. So whether you're a new leader, an emerging leader, or you're a current leader of any kind, I think there's something to offer you. You're going to learn something today as we examine a fresh subject. Today, our special guest, the lead pastor of Woodinville Alliance Church in the Seattle, Washington area, Pastor Todd Saint Germain, who today is going to be speaking with me on the subject of coaching. Why should someone be interested in coaching? What's it all about and what's it for? The reason Todd is an authority on this subject is because not only is he the lead pastor of Woodinville Alliance Church in the Seattle area, but he has been in full-time ministry for many, many years as a pastor. He is a master coach and a trainer of coaches and has been doing it in many different contexts, both in the business world, in the military world, as well as even in the not-for-profit world. So he brings a level of expertise and knowledge about this subject. Todd, welcome today to Learning to Lead.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for that gracious intro.
Today, we're going to address the question, what is coaching and why does someone need it? There's a lot of confusion today about the subject of coaching, Todd, and it's probably because people relate to it in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different words thrown around like life coaching or leadership coaching and all. You have experience both in the not-for-profit world, the ministry arena, in the military as a coach trainer. You have a lot of experience both in providing coaching, but also training people to coach. So you're a good one to talk to about this today. So let's start with the basics. What really is coaching at the basic level?
Sure. Great question. And I appreciate you asking it. It's not one that's asked like I think it should be. Back in the early 2000s, when I started exploring about getting into coaching, even Taco Bell, they called their trainers coaches. So we've gone through a gamut of it being streamlined and in every vocation to it splitting out and to being very specific. So if we really dig into what we call pure coaching, it's a partnership with someone making a way forward for them in whatever area they're in. So from general coaching, leadership coaching, life coaching that you mentioned, and even today we're starting to see specialty niche coaching around the ADHD field and people that are struggling in different areas with health and fitness. So coaching has really taken on all kinds of amazing forms. But if we're to dig down deeper into the leadership part of coaching, is which we're talking about today, I always connect that leadership piece of coaching to how much I view leadership as a calling. And it would be really easy for you and I to get to the end of our ministry career or our leadership career and feel pretty good about the route that we took, the things that we executed, the decisions we made, the organizations we grew. But then when we spin around and look at our legacy, look at all the years that we've passed, and we see the carnage and the hurt people and people that didn't find their place working with us, I think it behooves us to really look at where we are now and say, okay, if leadership is important and it is a calling, what about that heart level? What about that soul level? Who can help me see in my blind spots and the different things that I'm not viewing? So when I get to the end of my life, when I get to the end of wherever I've been traveling, I can look back and see a legacy and not just mishaps and mistakes. We all get amped up and move forward in leadership. There's so many decisions we have to make every single day. It does a leader well to be able to pause with someone they trust, with someone they care about. So in that context, leadership coaching is partnering with your coach and your client to create an environment where you can look at the different areas of your life, your ministry, your leadership, and peel back the layers. Celebrate the small and the big victories, but also peel back the layers and say, okay, what challenges do I have? What areas of growth do I need to wiggle through? I've had the pleasure through the years of coaching people for 10, 15 years, and to be able to look at where we were when we started and what they came to me for coaching about and where they are now with the different complexities of their life, the different complexities of their leadership. And they've grown themselves and can self-coach in many areas, because that's also a big part of coaching, is training people so they can step in and grow themselves. But to watch that happen is such a joy. Yeah, and that long-term amazing. Parts of coaching are lost unless you're really aware of what coaching can do for you on a long-term basis. It doesn't happen over a weekend. It doesn't happen in a week. It does take a time.
So we'd agree, Todd, that coaching, the goal of coaching is change and growth and transformation, right?
Absolutely.
There
Absolutely.
just so that we stay right focused on the coaching arena when we're talking about leaders developing other leaders and leaders growing and developing. There are a lot of different ways to do that, and there are other terms. So let's just distinguish for a moment. We don't have to take a deep dive on it, but there's people who are referred to as spiritual guides. There's mentoring. There is training. There is instruction. There is teaching. All of those are ways to develop people, sometimes effective, sometimes not. And then there is coaching. I remember in the late 1990s, I had an aha moment when I was talking to someone who I highly regard as a teacher, instructor, trainer. And he had been in ministry for many years, a few decades. And he said, I finally came to a point of realizing that all the years of training were not resulting in changing people's lives, but it was simply a lot of words, telling people what to do, preaching, teaching, pulpit ministry. But in terms of really producing life transformation, there was very little lasting fruit. When he told me that, he said, I've totally abandoned my models of ministry. And he said, I'm just giving myself to coaching and to developing others who coach. That was such an aha moment for me because it caused me to step back and evaluate, wow, how many sermons have I wasted, through the years? How do you determine whether or not all of your words, messages, teachings have resulted in true life change, which ought to be what we're all about, right?
Yeah.
And rethink the models that we're using? That led
Mm.
my friend into a whole journey of coaching, and it has greatly affected how I think about my fruitfulness. How do you respond to that, Todd?
It's such a real testimony. I think I've shared this with you, but for context of our time together, I had a similar experience with coaching. It was 2006, and I was working with some mentors and some friends, really assessing my life and assessing my legacy. It's always been important to me. And I began to look at, I was an associate pastor at the time, and I began to look at the percentage rate of people that were walking in victory or getting through things in their life. And I took a 360-degree assessment on all the different areas of my life, and it ended up, I think I scored 8% of the people that I was counseling and ministering to, giving great advice to, weren't responding. They weren't doing the things that I, in all my wisdom, thought they should. And I realized I was either horrible at my job or I was missing huge tools in my toolbox, things I didn't learn in college, things I didn't learn in ministry. And right about that time, there was a coaching weekend that I could go to called a Taste and See conference down in Virginia Beach. And I went and I realized immediately that this was the tools that I was missing. To be able to go into a room with someone and be confident in the coaching tools that I'm trained to use and know that I don't have to be an expert in every areas of their life or my life, and I can still bring value, that the weight of bringing change in someone's life was lifted, that now I am partnering people and making space for people and really recognizing and looking at them as their experts of their own life. And so for me, it transformed the whole paradigm of everything that I viewed leadership, how I led people. It cascaded over into my family, my marriage, how I dealt with friends, how I dealt with conflict. It's been so substantial that I coached almost immediately right from there. I ran after coaching. I ran after coach training as much as I could do. And ever since then, every area of my life has been shaped and molded by that. So to answer your question with that as my backstory, I think that everyone has to visit the idea of what methodology and what modality that they do. What do they want to help people move forward in? Coaching is one of them. It's one of many that you and I could list today. But the great thing about coaching is it puts me in rooms with people that I have no expertise with. But because I bring coaching in that room, I can bring value to the conversation. So if it's a military leader or a C-suite executive or a doctor or even someone that's ahead in their industry moving forward, I can sit with them. And there's value there because I'm not mentoring them. I'm not counseling them. I'm not facilitating them.
Even husbands and wives. I've talked to a lot of people that say they found themselves starting to use coaching techniques in a conversation with their spouse, and until the spouse wised up and they go, wait a minute, you're trying to coach me.
Another quick story about that, Bobby. One of my coach training classes that I did with an organization, there was a lot of infighting and bickering, and it was at the time when everyone was super open on Facebook. I know we're still a
Yeah.
little bit there, but back in the early days of Facebook, everyone was on there just sharing everything. And this individual watched two of his team members on Facebook in real time dealing with circumstance and defusing it using coaching and coaching questions. And he was immediately sold on the power of coaching and how just being there, listening, even through the internet, being in a live setting where you can ask coachings, posture yourself, it changes things. It transforms things.
Would you agree that one of the major differences in coaching and say from a trainer standpoint or a teacher, uh, coaching delivers the goods in the form of questions as
Yes.
opposed to in the form of commands or imperatives or even exhortations that are given. Nothing wrong with those things, and
No,
we
not at
do
all.
those things. There's a time for all of it, but coaching is couched in some techniques. So talk to us a little bit about the art of asking questions as it
Yes.
leads to coaching someone through change.
Yes. And those modalities that you were just talking about, those learning modalities, whether it's coaching, mentoring, counseling, or being a facilitator, they all matter, but they do have different pieces. So sometimes when I'm a coach, I have to change my hat
Yeah.
and become a mentor or a facilitator. But I normally as a coach don't find myself in that counseling world. And oftentimes people come to a coaching setting and they're not sure what coaching actually is. So for me, the art of coaching and the curiosity that a coach brings to the table, the idea that they're fully present in that moment and they create an atmosphere to really listen to people. I think those things set coaching apart from the other modalities around there because it's not prescriptive. We're not looking back too highly on the past hurts and traumas. We're really looking at the now and the future. And through questions, we're exploring where the client is at that moment and creating those aha moments like you and I were just talking about. And oftentimes when I'm in a coaching relationship, session 1 or 2, I'm already seeing the way forward for the client. But part of my role as the coach is not to steal that aha moment, to ask questions, not leading questions, but open questions, powerful questions. And that client can go there themselves. Then the buy-in's incredibly high. They see it as a solution that they're bringing to the table. Their value raises about, hey, I can lead myself. I can lead my organization forward. And then they learn in that environment how to ask themselves those same type of questions when they move forward. So I love that about coaching, once again, that if you bring curiosity, you bring this heart posture that, hey, leadership is a calling, and you create an environment where you're really curious, you're engaged in the conversation, and there's pauses, not for me to be thinking about the next question I'm going to ask, but really being engaged in that moment. And it's not even the amount of questions that you ask, it's as wide open as the questions can be to get the movement forward. So that is a distinct thing about coaching that I think sets it apart.
I think that's why someone who taught me so much about coaching, Dr. Joseph Umidi, who was the founder of Life Forming Coaching, who you know as well, once told me, he said, Bobby, I'm not sure how good of a coach you're going to be because you're too much of a teller. He said, you tell people more than you ask them. I'm like, I'm going to have to work on that a little bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it is true. Many of us are addicted tellers.
it's
And
true.
we have spent so much time telling people what they should do and telling them what the Bible says. But it doesn't take a whole lot of adjustment to turn that into a self-seeking question that leads someone to some self-discovery.
Yes.
So anyway, I was just thinking because obviously we're Christian leaders, and this program is Christian-based learning to lead. It might be useful just to mention this is not something that typically people think is biblical, so they don't think of it as being in the Bible. But the reality is, Jesus was an incredible coach.
He was.
Right?
He
I mean,
was.
think about the kinds of questions that he asked. And I was reading something recently that said Jesus hardly ever taught a lesson without it being in the form of a parable. So he didn't just
Yes.
preach at people. He was telling
Yes.
stories and asking questions. And I thought, if a lot of our communication style, if we could adjust it to be more storytellers and
Yes.
more question askers, I think we'd be more effective and we'd see more change, don't you?
I totally agree with you. I think I have at least 3 books on my bookshelf about the questions that Jesus asked. Some were simple, some were complex. Some got immediate answers, some got really goofy answers,
Yeah.
and some caused the people to walk away and think about life. And some of those stories, we don't have the final result of that person that was asked that question,
Right.
but we can look at that and learn that questions change lives. And when people are in that moment of whether you want to call it conviction or the change that's happening deep inside them, to give them space to think thoroughly about that conversation around a question changes people.
Yeah, it does.
And I understand the whole idea of telling and giving advice. That's one of the methodologies that people do use about coaching. And I think mentoring is really important. I think
Yeah.
walking alongside people and sharing things directly with them is really important, but it is a different methodology.
Yeah.
And I think you need all in your life. But if we're really talking about pure coaching, questions without giving an answer are a huge reason why coaching is so successful.
One of the questions a lot of people ask me is, why would I need coaching? What are the real benefits? And you and I kind of think the same about this, and maybe a simplest way to put it is there's kind of a threefold answer, and I'm going to give the answer to the question, then let you unpack each word, all right? So
Sure.
It's easy to remember, SEA, that's support, encouragement, and accountability. So the S is support, the E is encouragement, and the A is accountability. Explain how those are integrated into a coaching relationship.
Sure. This is such a powerful and often overlooked piece. You know me well enough to know that SEA it's a triad in all that I do in coaching.
Yeah.
Some people come to me just for the S. Some people come to me just for the E. And there's a lot of people more and more that are coming to me around the A, which is that support, encouragement, and accountability. And the flexibility of that being a framework around coaching, there's so many people that don't have anyone to support them in their leadership role. They're isolated. They find themselves at the top and no one around them is being honest enough with them to help growth come. And they feel like they are supposed to carry the weight of everything. So in an environment of coaching where you can support people, you can bring them encouragement, and you can bring them accountability, it all brings change. What I love about coaching and building SEA around coaching, and it's easy to do at the beginning, is working with the client individually to determine what area of that SEA they need more. Some need an equal amount. Some need just support at the beginning or encouragement. I've had folks that come to me with a list saying, okay, these are all the things that I need you to hold me accountable about. It's establishing that support, that encouragement and accountability through that the coaching agreements at the beginning builds trust. It builds an environment where people can come in and say, hey, I know that you want to bring change into my life. So it can't be expressed enough how important SE is in a coach-client relationship.
So would you say that a prerequisite for an effective coaching relationship would be there has to be an openness and a willingness to receive coaching and to respond, because using that modality of asking questions and letting someone self-discover, if someone's really not ready to be coached, it's going to be a very quiet conversation, right? And
yes.
So how do you overcome that?
I try to be very direct in all that I do with coaching. And this kind of conversation at the very beginning that we're having, asking the questions, is usually the first session that I have with a client, because there has to be buy-in. There has to be an understanding that I can't force them to change. Their boss can't force them to change, and certainly their spouse or significant other can't force them to change. I haven't seen this play out more directly and more vividly than when I was at the shipyard here in the Bremerton area working with teams in the shipyard. And part of their embedded coaching model, which I was really blessed to be able to be a part of that, is you were embedded into the actual workday of these C-suite leaders and up-and-coming leaders. And so you would walk with them all week long. You would help coach them, and then you'd watch them function inside meetings. And many of them were forced to be coached. And we'd have to establish at the very beginning the buy-in of them being coached or not coached. And we were given the freedom to not coach those people that didn't have buy-in. And the point is, you can mandate coaching in someone's life if you're a leader and you want your staff or those that are in your life to be coached. But if there isn't a buy-in to say, hey, you know what? I need to be held accountable for my life. I need support in this certain area. I definitely need encouragement in this area. And I'd like to move forward in maybe these three areas. If you don't invite a coach into that, it's counterintuitive, counterproductive, and it's like grinding teeth.
Yeah.
I've had many spouses come to me and say, you know, it'd be sure great if you could help my husband change, or it'd be sure great if you could bring change into this area in my wife's life. And coaching just doesn't work like that.
No.
You can't mandate it. You can't force it. It's an invitation. It's
No.
an invitation to come close with someone that actually really is curious about your life, really curious about helping bring lasting transformation into your life. And if you'd surrender to that as a leader, what you would find in those rooms with a coach does bring transformation. It's odd for some at first because they're there often and they're viewing the coach as an expert, but a good trained, healthy coach doesn't approach coaching that way. They approach the client as the expert. So when you meet with a coach, you're actually determining the agenda. You're determining what you're talking about. You're determining if the session starts on time by if you show up on time. You determine all of those things as the client, and the coach helps foster that and facilitate that. But really, the weight of that is on the client, and that's healthy for the coach, but it's also healthy for the client.
Good. You know, I want to get, before we wrap up today, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about what's involved in being trained to be a coach. But before we do that, let's talk about one of the kind of the cornerstone tools in the toolkit of a coach is a model called the GROW model. And
Yes.
some have heard of, maybe mentioned in different ways, but if you could give us, I know it would be superficial, but if you just help us to understand what is the GROW model and how might that help anyone who's watching this program today to know, oh, okay, I could use that in this situation or that situation, because it's commonly used in the coaching world.
It sure is. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. A lot of people look past it because it seems so simple. It seems so overused. I was joking. I think it was you several years ago, maybe 10 years ago when we were talking about it. The first coaching business that I ever started, I actually called it Grow Smart Coaching because it was the two tools, the two frameworks that I only had confidence in. And it's what I used all the time. And the success rate of my coaching wasn't based on how cool I was or my experience. It was really that I could stay within this framework and watch real change happen. So what I love about the GROW model, that framework of coaching, is when you teach your clients that, they begin to be able to use that in their lives. So you can actually sit down with someone in 15 minutes, even on a cocktail napkin in a restaurant, and write down what the GROW model is. And it's a tangible tool they can take with them. It sparks such inspiration. So the GROW acronym is goal is for the G, R is reality, O is options, and W is will, or the way forward. So basically you write that GROW model out and you dig into and you spend time really looking at what your goal is. If your goal is, I want to change and be a different leader in the next year, that's not a good goal. It's not quantifiable. There's no way that you can surround it. So in that goal, you also bring in another framework that works parallel with GROW, and it's the SMART model. And we can talk about that in a minute, but you use that SMART model, that SMART framework to build your goal, to make it so you know and can track it. And then you pause after you really dig down and write that tangible goal down, and you look at your reality. You look at the reality of where you are right now, and the coach helps the client exhaust that reality. Let's look at the things that are in your control. Let's look at the things that are outside your control. Let's look at the reality that you're in right now, and what resources do you have, what people in your life that you can bring forward. And if you take the right amount of time to look at your reality, a lot of those roadblocks or those hindrances when you move forward in this will already be alleviated. It's a huge part of the growth process is dealing with the reality that you're at right now. Some people want to become a person that they're just not able to become yet. There's other things that they have to do first. So oftentimes when you do the goal and the reality, you'll have to go back to the goal and rewrite it, because they'll realize, hey, this isn't real right now. I can't do this. So as you go down that process with the G and the R, you get to options. And the options are really fun and creative. Oftentimes when you're in coaching, people want to be very linear, but there's a really creative aspect to coaching too, where you can look at the options, look at the layers, look at the possibilities, and it becomes fun and very life-giving and energetic and inspiring. Oftentimes people do their dream wall or their inspiration wall, or they'll hang up pictures about those options in their life. And once you get there, then you have to ask them yourselves those hard questions, peel back the layers and say, okay, where is my will in this? I'm seeing the goal. I'm seeing the reality that I'm in now, and then I have to bring some change. I'm going to have to hold myself accountable. I'm going to have to invite some people into my world to hold me accountable. There's all kinds of options and ways to go, but all of them take effort. All of them take surrender. All of them take partnering. Where am I right now if we talk about the way forward? What do I need to do so I'm 100% in and I can move forward in this? And by using that framework, that GROW framework, people change and transform. And you watch excitement in their eyes, and you watch hope return into their leadership roles and even in their marriages, because they have a framework to walk in. And that's why I think the GROW model is so important. I use it with every coaching relationship I have, whether I make it as obvious as saying, hey, we're going to go through the GROW model, GROW, or I just do it verbally. You can walk anyone through a coaching topic within 15, 20 minutes, or you can take 4 weeks or 4 months doing it and really dig down into it. But it's such a versatile tool. And it's the one that when I'm training coaches, it's the one that I insist they learn first. With all the other things that you can do and the most powerful questions that you can build, I know friends that carry a notebook around with them and they listen to conversations and they write powerful questions that they hear because that's who they are. All that's fantastic. But if you don't have a framework like this that you can lean on, that you can trust, that you can dig down into, coaching becomes very superficial. And then your efforts as a coach, you're striving to bring change. But this GROW model lets you ease back. It lets you be in the room with people, and it empowers your client to move forward and watch change really happen consistently in all those areas we're talking about. Their work life, their marriage life, their relationship life, even with children and grandchildren. It's amazing how I've used the GROW model, even with my 10-year-old grandson.
Amazing.
It just works. It works at every age level.
Like you said, sometimes you can integrate a framework like the GROW framework and sneak it in, and people don't even realize. But you're really what you're really doing is helping.
It's a little not sneaky, but it just works. It just works.
It does work, and the important thing is it leads to growth and to transformation, and that's what we're all about. Well,
That's
Todd,
what we're all about.
Gosh, there's so many different things that we could take deeper dive into, but maybe I can just wrap this up because there are many people who are going to be listening to this. They're either leaders today, or they're wanting to be leaders, or learning to be better leaders. Could it and would it be beneficial for someone who would like to learn to coach, even if it's in a non-professional way? They just want to integrate that into their ministry or their business or their life. Are there any tools or steps that you might recommend for someone who's interested in becoming a coach?
Yes. Great question. I certainly could give some recommendations that I'm not getting any compensation for back, just because I love coaching. I'm a big fan of Humidity and Life Forming out of Virginia Beach. We can certainly make those web links available. But I would ask the person that's seeking it to pause and really ponder why they're stepping into coaching. You and I both know the coaching industry has just exploded, and everyone is a coach trainer. Everyone leads people into coaching. I would ask those that are seeking coaching to really pause and ponder what kind of coach training they want. And one of the things I love about Life Forming and how it impacted me is it took time for me to change inside before I could coach people. I'm a firm believer that you can't go away for a weekend, learn all that you need to learn, become a certified coach, and then step into it on Monday. I think for some of us, it takes us years to become a good coach.
It's true.
I would say at least the process needs to take several months where you can examine yourself first and find out why you're wanting to coach people, why you're wanting to partner with people. And if people take that on the front end, it's going to inspire them to find the right type of training. And I always would recommend a training that deals with the coach first. Yes, the tools are there. Yes, the methodology is there. Yes, the healthy part of coaching is there. But if we don't lead from our overflow, and that includes coaching, we're going to do it for the wrong motivation, and we're going to either frustrate ourselves or frustrate our clients. And if we could wrap our heart around that, why we're partnering with people, why we're wanting them to change, it's because we've seen the change in us. the believability is way higher. The credibility is way higher.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do today, Todd, is here on this YouTube channel, we're going to provide in the information as a part of this YouTube channel, a couple of those referrals and resources and links that would help someone who maybe really wants to know more about coaching, how it could benefit them as a recipient, but also they can integrate some of those tools into their life. Todd,
Yes.
Pastor Todd, you're doing a wonderful job in Woodinville and impacting much of the metro Seattle area. And I'm so blessed to stay in touch with you, and I look forward to having another helpful conversation of learning to lead later on another topic.
Thank you, sir. And I pray for you often. I pray for this season as your legacy unfolds and you move forward. You're an incredible man of God, and I know many people have benefited from your mentoring and your coaching through the years. I'm one of them. So thank you.
Thank you, sir,
for having me.
God bless you, and bless you too.
Thanks for tuning in to Learning to Lead. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow Dr. Bobby Hill on social media for more inspiration, insights, and updates. For more information on his ministry roles and resources, visit drbobbyhill.com.